crazy controversy where he's supposed to get this pay package of like between 45 and 50 or 46 and 56 billion dollars, depending on which outlet you look at. They were supposed to write him a check for that amount of money based on various incentives that came into play as it pertained to Tesla. Now, the thing about that, though, is that there were some questions about Elon Musk's pay package. A shareholder sued him, and they said, "No, we're not. We owe you money, and we'll pay you a few $1 billion, but we don't owe you 56 billion. That's an amount of money that would cripple the company. That's just way too much to pay any one man." And so you would say, well, why would you not agree to pay somebody money that you agreed to pay them, right? You agreed to pay it. It's in the contract. If you do the math, he earned the money. Well, what came up was an issue that I think you should be aware of in your economic consciousness journey, which is what they refer to as corporate governance. And governance basically comes down to who represents the interests of the shareholders. The job of the manager of the manager of the company is not the owner of the company, right? You know, just like when I talked to you all about how the Black community, for the most part, we've been trained to be economic babysitters for white folks. A lot of our graduates from our best HBCUs, they're not trained to actually build and run companies. They're trained to manage companies, right? And if you are lucky, in our view, for a lot of people, if you're very lucky, then one day you'll get to manage at the highest level. You'll get to be the vice president or the CEO, et cetera, which is not bad. It's nothing to be ashamed of or anything, but you're not really the boss. You're not really the owner of the company, because the owner of the company is the people who actually own the company, if you know what I mean. The owner of the company are the people who actually pay the bills and finance the company. So the same thing is true in Hollywood. When you look in Hollywood and you say, well, who's the most powerful people in Hollywood? It's almost never the person that you see. It's almost never the movie star or the singer or the performer. The most powerful people in Hollywood are the people who write the checks. Okay. The most powerful people in Hollywood are the ones who actually sign the contracts, make the $1 billion deals, sit down with Netflix and do distribution, content distribution deals and everything else. These are the people who run Hollywood, the ones who go to the bank and get financing so they can make another, $200 million movie. Those are the people that are the most powerful in Hollywood. So the same thing is true when you talk about a company like, for example, Tesla. The owners of Tesla are the people who actually own the shares in the company. So basically with this issue, this governance issue, you have the board of directors that is supposed to be representative of the shareholders. So the board of directors is a smaller body that engages consistently with the CEO and top management to say, this is what the shareholders want, and we're here to protect the shareholders. So they have what is referred to as a fiduciary responsibility to make sure that shareholder interests are adequately represented by the actions of management. Now, give me a yes if you're following this. Let me know. Give me a quick yes if this is all making sense, if this is all adding up. I don't want to talk too fast. That's what I do sometimes. I apologize. I just had my coffee, so maybe that's it. And you mix coffee with ADHD, you're going to have some problems. All right, so here's what happens. Okay, so basically there was an accusation at Tesla that the board of directors did not do its job of representing the interests of shareholders. This particular shareholder felt that Elon Musk screwed the shareholders, that basically the board was not representing the shareholders. They were kind of in the pocket of Elon Musk. And in fact, actually, there's evidence to that. Elon's own brother was on the board. A lot of his very best friends were on the board. And they were like, there's no way they can really represent the interests of shareholders when they're best buddies with Elon Musk. And so this is a significant problem when you have a company being run and the people that actually putting the money up are not having their interests protected properly. So a Delaware court ruled that Elon Musk's pay package was invalid. So what Musk did was he then took his company and he unincorporated in Delaware and reincorporated in Texas. That's what he did. So then they took another shareholder vote to see if the shareholders want to pay him this money. And now then the shareholders voted in his favor. They actually overwhelmingly voted in his favor. 72% said, yeah, give the guy the money. He earned it. That's what the contract says. That's fair and square. So now he still doesn't have the money for sure. He still has to go back to Delaware, present the shareholder vote to the judge and say, look, the shareholders are okay with this. So you can't say that we're not representing the interests of the shareholders because we just put it up for a vote. So that's all fine and good. That's life. That's what it is, right? The Tesla shareholders love Elon, and I don't blame them. He took the company from being a $50 billion company to about 1.3 trillion. That's a hell of a company. I mean, that's a hell of a flip. That's extraordinarily good. In fact, I really, when I look at Elon Musk, I imagine to myself all of the trillions of dollars that have been lost in the black community because we have black Elon Musks out here. We have black people out here that are just as smart as Elon, that work hard, that were good with math and science, just like Elon, that are good with technology, just like Elon, but they couldn't get the capital base. They didn't get the capital. They didn't get the investment that Elon got. They also didn't get the encouragement that Elon got. Maybe that little genius. Maybe when he was 12, somebody told him he was acting white because he was doing good in math class, or maybe somebody convinced him that he, instead of being the what he was supposed to be, maybe he was supposed to be like the best drug dealer in the hood, and so he's the guy that can in his head calculate or switch between kilos and grams, mathematically in a second. Everybody says, oh, he's so smart, and really he's maybe a dream deferred or deflected, right? He's a person that had one purpose and then society pushed him in a different direction. Or another thing that also happens too is I think that we tend to stamp out and we mute the genius and the greatness of our kids because we don't encourage them to go to the very top. What we do is we do what actually happened with me, which is when you show up and you're black and you're really smart and you're really capable, people tell you, oh wow, that's really great. You're going to get a really great job. That's what they say. They say if you're the smartest student at Howard University, so when you graduate, there's 20 companies that would love to hire you. Or you go to Stanford or Harvard or something, and then you're still encouraged to like go to Goldman Sachs or something. And because Goldman's going to give you a $250,000 salary with a bonus and all these other, and you really feel like you're winning, like you really feel like you've won. You feel like you've reached the potential of what you could do. Like, look at me. I now make 300,000 a year. I've got a corporate car or something, and I get to fly the private jet every now and then, and I'm living the life. And what I think you don't understand is the shadow cost. Remember, I told you in economics, as far as economic awareness isn't just when you see what's there. Awareness is when you see what isn't there. Right? Awareness is when you don't see what's in front of you. It's what you see. It's when you can see what could have been in front of you. You understand? So you're seeing, you don't just see what happened, you see what could have happened. You follow me? So that's awareness. You have to be able to see in higher dimensions, not just three dimensions, fourth, fifth, and sixth dimension. So fourth, fifth, and sixth dimensional sight means that I don't just see what I am, I see what I could have become if I had taken a different route. Right. So anyway, with this, when I see, so with my awareness, I guess being at the whatever level it is, when I see a young person that's doing really well, or they got a great job, or they're doing a good job as an economic babysitter, pretty much. That's kind of what we become when we go work for other people and we manage their capital and we create one job when we could have created 100,000 jobs. We create one, that's what I see. I say, gosh, that I wonder what that person could have been if they had been encouraged to really truly reach their potential, if they'd been given access to a capital base and also access to a vision that involved not just them creating a really awesome, amazing, comfortable job for themselves, but what happens when you create 10,000 really comfortable jobs for other people? Because remember, Elon Musk could have also done the same thing. Elon Musk could have gone into the world and just been like a superstar manager for Ford or something, and created a really great job for himself. But instead, Elon Musk has probably created about 700,000 jobs for other people. I went through San Antonio, or not San Antonio, I'm sorry, it was Austin, Texas, where I think I know Tesla's down there. I think SpaceX has some stuff down there. And I drove through a big, gigantic part of the city, and this almost like a kingdom, where I'm driving with the Uber driver, and he points to this rows and rows and rows of these apartments, like thousands of them. And he says, that's where all the Tesla employees live. Is it called Tesla Road? Thank you, Aisha. I don't know anything about, I didn't know what it's called, but I was impressed. And I just sat here and I just really thought about, I thought about what I don't know. I always take it back to us and our community. And I think about just when I hear like some rapper saying, I'm a boss. And I'm like, what are you a boss of? Like, you're not, because I'm seeing this empire with thousands and thousands of apartments that people are living in because they're all employed, at a six-figure level by this true boss, by this guy who's built this a massive empire. I don't even like Elon Musk, but I give credit where it's due, right? And I'm like, well, if you're really that boss that you say you are, I get it. You have a nice house, maybe you have a nice car, and maybe you sold a bunch of albums last year for some Jewish people or something. But to me, you're not really a boss, because if you really were sort of at the level that you claim to be, then you would actually have hundreds of thousands of people who could say, my life is different because of something that you did. Like Elon Musk can say, I've got 700,000 people who ate today because I gave them money to eat. That's pretty powerful. That's pretty extraordinary. I don't know how many people I can think of in our space that are raised to think that way. I think that many of us are raised to think if you get yourself a really good job and you eat well and your children eat well, then you've achieved the most that a Black person can achieve. Do you understand what I'm saying? I don't know if I sounded critical or if I sounded like I don't want to sound like I'm putting a white guy on a pedestal. I'm not doing that. I'm just letting you know like sort of what that means to actually truly have that sort of massive, outsized, maximum economic impact. Maximum economic impact has rarely ever been achieved by somebody who had a job. It just is. And again, it's not to make fun of people that have jobs. I'm not here to do that. But to me, if you can do a little bit better, why not try to do better? Understanding one thing that scientists understand and technology people understand, and the reason that Silicon Valley folks are running the world is because they understand a very simple phrase called scale. They understand scale. Scale means that instead of thinking of something going to the highest level, I'm going to think about multiplication, and that means that if I can create something amazing and scale it properly, then I can do something that really impacts a very broad space. I can have a very broad, massive impact. And to really even understand scale or to pursue scale or to be committed to scale, you have to have a certain level of consciousness. So let me, and I'm going to circle back to Elon Musk in a minute because I think that there's more to talk about there. But since we're doing the stream of consciousness, and I hope this is benefiting you, let's talk about Jeff Bezos. Jeff Bezos runs Amazon. Jeff Bezos is worth about $200 billion a year. And what I encourage you to do is when you hear people like that talk, you got to listen to how they think. Watch how they process information. Watch how they can look at the same thing most people can see and they'll see it completely differently. So if you listen to Jeff Bezos, I remember hearing him talk about why he left a really good job. He did something a lot of people wouldn't have the courage to do. He was doing well. He didn't get called into entrepreneurship because he couldn't pay the bills. He was actually making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year in some really fancy corporate job. He had the corporate car and and all the credit card and all the little things that we dream about growing up. He had the dream job. Well, he walked away from the dream job to start Amazon, and people said, "Well, why would you want to go and do that? That's crazy. You're giving up this great job." A lot of you go through that. A lot of you, if you were to start a business, especially for those of you that have good jobs, I know a lot of you do. You would have people in your family that would say, "Why would you do that? Why would you let that go? That's crazy. That's stupid." Right? Especially given that entrepreneurship is kind of raggedy in the beginning. If you've ever been an entrepreneur, built something, you know that in the beginning it feels kind of raggedy. You don't know if it's going to work. 80% of Black-owned businesses fail. You don't really get the same level of clout that you might get if you go on LinkedIn and say that if you announce to everybody on LinkedIn that you became the senior manager of widgets at Google or something, like, right? If you're associated with a big name brand corporation, there are lots of people that get very excited about that, but they don't really see the vision of what your brand might look like when you build that sucker up and make that thing into something that people admire. So Jeff Bezos left to go work on Amazon, and his goal generally was to scale. He said, "I have not reached my potential. I have not become the best that I can be." And the other thing that he said that was really interesting was he was talking about creating a product or creating a brand. He said, when you have an idea, he said, an idea is just the beginning. And this is something we've talked about before. So an idea is a piece of your vision. The idea is that initial spark. I could make these things and everybody's going to buy them because they're going to be so good and they're going to solve this important problem. But the idea is just literally the seed. It's the tiny seed that just kind of opens up this parallel universe of all these possibilities that might exist. If you're willing to truly commit to that idea. So if you marry the idea and you're committed to the idea, he said, you better make 100% sure that you really love this idea, because there's a lot of work that's required to go from ideation to actually creating something real. He said there's lots of roadblocks, pitfalls, misconceptions, adjustments, pivots you have to make in order to get to the finish line. So when you have the idea really is just the beginning. And I say that part because I know I meet a lot of people who come to me and they say, "Dr. Boyce, I've got this great idea." And I'm like, wow, I'm happy for you. And I'm thinking, I hope that you also understand that you really don't have a whole lot right now. You've got an idea. That's great. But what else? The ideas have to be fueled. Just like you can have a beautiful car, but if you don't put gas in an engine in the car will go nowhere. A balloon, you have to fill it up with lots and lots of air. If you don't take the time to blow the air into the balloon, then the balloon, it doesn't matter if the balloon is actually there or not. So the idea is it's like that beautiful car, it's like that balloon. The question is what energy is going to be put into manifesting and making that thing real. I also even compare it to having a child. Or a lot of people they make the horrible mistake of thinking that because they made a baby that they are an actual parent, that they've actually raised a child. Making a baby is not hard. It's most of you know how to do it. If you don't, I would say I'll teach you, but I can't because my wife won't let me. And but making a baby is pretty straightforward. You know the process. God taught you that before you were when you were young, and so but you know that making the baby is something that can happen very quickly, and it's something that it can involve literally a few minutes of activity. But raising the baby is 18 years. 18 years is let's see, there's 24 hours in a day. There's 8,760 hours in a year. So there's 87,600 hours in a decade. So just the first 10 years of raising the baby requires about 87,600 consistent hours of work toward one goal of getting this child, you know, to a certain stage without them dying, which means you got to feed them every day. You got to constantly have an awareness of where they are and what they're doing. You got to make sure that they're safe, right? And then you got another decade after that. So you got about another 87,000 hours. We got a 21-year-old. So we put in, well, his mother has, I'm his bonus dad. So, but overall as a family, we put in what about 100 and what's that, 100 and about 176,000 hours to get him just to the age of 20, just to the age of 20, 176,000 hours of consistent work. And that doesn't count any intervention we might have to do in his 20s and his 30s and his 40s, right? So what I would say to you is that the same thing is true with a business idea. You have to really understand what is required to implement and to scale that thing. And then also, even to even come up with the idea or to even pursue whatever it is that you believe in, you have to have an understanding of what it really means to reach the pinnacle of your success. A lot of us, economically speaking, when we become these economic babysitters that we're trained to be, economic babysitter meaning that you are the steward, the protector of someone else's resources. You work for Arby's and you are the manager of the Arby's, but you do not own any percentage of the Arby's. You are a middle manager at Ford, but you have no ownership even in Ford stock. You are excited to go and get a fancy job with a big corporation that someone else owns and controls, but your ownership stake is non-existent. That's what I mean by being an economic babysitter. A babysitter is somebody who does all the work to take care of the child, but does not get credit for being the parent. That is not your baby, right? And so sometimes you can imagine, if you imagine a babysitter who babysits a child so much that they start to feel like that they're the parent. Right, I'm babysit this child all day, so I start feeling like I'm the dad. I'm not really the dad. I'll never be the dad, no matter how much babysitting I do. So in generally speaking, if you are consistently committed as a community to being economic babysitters for big white companies, then you will never really have any control over your own fate or your own economic destiny. Dr. Claude Anderson speaks very eloquently about the fact that after slavery, 98.5% of all Black people work for a white person. 200 years later, 98.5% of all Black people work for a white person. And you had a moment during Jim Crow, before the Civil Rights Movement, where you did have lots of Black ownership. You had every type of company that there was a Black version of that company where they were planting those seeds and growing the kinds of institutions that will be worth tens of billions of dollars today. They were building companies. These companies were in the seminal stages. Maybe they're in the first 10 years, first 20 years, kind of in that tough, rough, raggedy stage. But these companies were well run, and the owners were pouring all their energy into maintaining and building this institution. They didn't drop their organization to say, which white person can I go serve today? And these companies would have grown into something pretty extraordinary. But instead, when you had the whole civil rights thing and integration and all that, a lot of that ended up dying. And it died not just because of desegregation. It didn't die because the people in the civil rights movement were just necessarily wrong. It died because you didn't value yourself. It died because you didn't value your vision. It died because you didn't understand that just because you have the right and the ability to go work for white people, that doesn't mean that's what you automatically should do. Maybe that's an option for you. Maybe that's something you can consider if things get too hard. But if you really value yourself and value who you are and value what you're working on and value your vision, then you're going to realize something that's very important for anybody to understand if they want to create something of their own. You have to understand to the core of your soul that pouring into your vision is the most important thing you can do. You have to make it in your own head. You have to make working on your own vision the coolest thing in the world, the most important thing you can ever do. And that requires almost like a spiritual transformation. That's a financial consciousness exercise like no other, because that requires you to really reshape and reevaluate everything you've been taught about who you are and how much you matter to the world. Because if I've been trained to believe that all I am is a little black boy and that I ain't gonna be nothing until white people accept me, then I'm never gonna think that what I'm working on is as important as what Mr. Charlie's working on. Do you understand what I'm saying? Let me know if you get this. This is an important point. If I just see myself like, oh, I'm just a black kid, but until somebody comes along and blesses me with an opportunity, and then I can turn around and tell my mama, look, I made it. I started from the bottom. Now I'm here. I used to be, all I was is a little black boy in the hood, and I wasn't nobody, but now I'm the senior manager at Google, and now I'm an important person. And what I'm here to say to you, and this is really important, you just got to understand this, is that you were important before Google identified your importance. You should be congratulating them. They shouldn't just be congratulating you. Congratulations, Tyrone. We're so happy that you're here, and we're glad to give Tyrone an opportunity. I get that. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. But at the same time, you don't understand that they might have short circuited you. They might have actually sold you short and extracted something from you that you didn't even know was there yet. And so to some extent, all the people that I've ever worked for, all the people that I've ever served, when I got that first job at Syracuse University, because I was a damn good finance PhD student. I was the top of my class pretty much, or close to it. I was one of the best, let's just say that. And I was the only African American on the entire planet to get a PhD in finance in the year 2002. There was no male, no female, nobody that year who got that same degree. I was pretty hot stuff, right? So Syracuse hired me, and I was thankful. I was very grateful. I was like, thank you so much for hiring me. But then I look back on that and I say, no, also you should congratulate them for being wise enough to identify the extraordinary talent that I had. Like, okay, yeah, you blessed me. I appreciate everything you did for me, but I blessed you too, because guess what? You got to have over a decade of me pouring my very best ideas and my very best energy into your institution. So congratulations to you too. I got paid, so did you. You got to see your value. That's what I'm saying. And I think you can see your value without being arrogant about it. You understand? I'm not trying to. I hope I don't sound cocky or arrogant, but you got to be honest. If you put in the work and you got the skill and you got the desire and you got the hunger, then every time you get hungry, you become more valuable. Every time your vision gets better, you are a more valuable asset. I can literally show you mathematics that would help you put that into an equation. Actually, the more you have poured in the work and the energy and the commitment and the focus and the vision, like, the more valuable you become. So anybody who's connected to you is being blessed because you have chosen to be a blessing to other people. See, so not everybody makes that choice. Some people don't want to be a blessing to anybody. They don't even become blessings to themselves. They become their own worst enemy. They destroy the people around them. Excuse me. They drain resources from other people. So you got the opposite in effect too. Some of you have that energy, desire, vision, focus, and just the heart to really bless other people. And so what I want you to do is to be able to be conscious and aware of that. Be aware of the fact that when you put in the work and made yourself into the best that you can be, you are a gift. Your time is a gift. Your energy is a gift. Your ideas are a gift. You all are a gift to me, and I want to be a gift to you. Every day I say, how can I be a gift? Right? And so what happens in that point, in my opinion, is that you got to kind of think about who deserves the very best of you, who deserves that gift. It's really something you already understand, in my opinion. It's something, if you know anything about even relationships, you know how some people will date somebody that doesn't deserve them and will give their best to the person who treats them the worst, and will give their worst to the people who treats them the best. You know people like that. I feel like that's a self-esteem issue, right? Right? Like, why would I give my best to the person who treats me the worst and my worst to the person who treats me the best? Well, if I don't really value myself, then I kind of get into these very weird dynamics. I treat you better because I'm looking for something from you. I need you to validate me. And so when I look at the economic relationship between Black people and pretty much the rest of the world, but especially white folks, is that we don't get treated well. We know these things. We know that we haven't been given a fair shake. They haven't given us what we deserve. They don't acknowledge us the way we need to be acknowledged. And but yet, for some reason, our whole lives we spend all of our time seeking validation from the very same people who collectively, not individually. I don't dislike white people. I don't hate white folks. So I don't want this to be one of those conversations. But collectively, they really haven't seen our worth or seen our value. And to some extent, even those who claim to be our friends will still position it like the best thing I can do for a Black person is to allow them to be around me, or to let them be in my space, or to let them come work for me, or let them serve me in some way. And I don't think that that's the very best of us. I think that I can say this, that once I started to see my worth, which was pretty much kind of in my mid 30s, and started to focus on my vision, I started training myself to say, wait a minute, I'm damn good at what I do, and I'm gonna be great, whether they want me or not. If you don't want me, then that's okay. That's your loss. That's your lack of vision. That's your missed opportunity. And so that means that I then have my free time to pour into something that I want to do, something that I believe in, and it's going to be extraordinary because I'm committed to being an extraordinary person. You understand? And that is, to me, part of the core of what it's required for you to build an institution. You got to love the hell out of that thing. You got to believe in it. You got to care for it. You got to realize how important it is. That family business that you're building, that whatever it is you're doing, those kids you're raising, that stuff is as important as you choose for it to be. And so anyway, so when you look at and you contrast, so you go back to Jeff Bezos and the Elon Musk of the world and stuff like that. If you look at their track record, and I read everybody's bio, you'll see a time where Bezos could have been pouring his time into keeping that $300,000 or $400,000 job that he had, but instead he said, "No, I want to pour into this little raggedy business called Amazon, and I can't do it half and half." He could not serve two gods at the same time. He couldn't do his time at the corporate plantation and run Amazon at the same time, because Amazon took everything he had, every spare moment, every level, every ounce of energy, every good idea had to be poured into the vision that he was connected to. And that happened to be the vision that he owned. And that's why he's worth several $100 billion a year. So what I want you to kind of do as a consciousness exercise is I need you to stop and meditate on how many millions of young Black people could have done what a Jeff Bezos would do, could have built something extraordinary, but didn't, because they were too busy focused on master's job. I know people like this. I know people, a person that comes to mind right now, super talented, could do anything, extraordinarily good, but she can't be as good as she needs to be because she got to go to work and do that goofy little job that she has. I'm not making fun of the job, but I was like, you are so talented, but you don't see your talent. I said, so if you don't see your talent, it doesn't matter what I see. Because if I see it, it doesn't, like I've seen talent. I've seen people go and make millions of dollars. I've seen people go and become famous and everything else. I've seen it all, right? But I compare you to all these people, and I know you got everything that they've got. The only thing that they have that you don't have is belief in themselves and enough self-love to pour into themselves. So you invest in the things that you value. And I said, honestly, right now, you value this company that you work for and this job. And I get it, because we have short-term needs. You got to pay bills and all that. But I don't know. I don't know. I think you might end up having some regrets in the long term. Anyway, so let me circle back and kind of give a full circle on the Elon Musk thing. And this leads to actually a concept I wanted to kind of introduce you to. So here's what Musk is doing with the Tesla investors that I think is absolutely hilarious and just somewhat ridiculous. Is he's basically lying to the investors. I think he's kind of pimping them a little bit. And so what he did was, to get his $56 billion pay package, he kind of threatened them, and he kind of just said, look, if you don't give me my money, I'm going to put my energy into my other companies. I'm going to take my best ideas to SpaceX, and I'm going to go work on Twitter and all this other stuff. And so screw you guys, I'm going home, like Cartman on South Park used to say. And so they gave him his money, partly because they wanted to keep his attention. I personally would have told him, get the hell out of here. Because I think Tesla stock, in case you want to know from a stock market standpoint, I think it's incredibly risky. I don't think he's going to maintain his dominance in the EV industry like he's gotten to this point. And I think the Tesla investors are going to regret giving him all that money. But that's just my assessment. I could be wrong. I could be wrong. Maybe he'll prove me wrong. But the other thing that he said, which was really interesting, was I guess to get them excited, he gave them this grand vision and said that he believes Tesla will be a $30 trillion company because of robots or something. And what's fascinating to me is because Musk is very smart, he's a genius. He knows how short-term people's memories are. They don't remember how many times over the last decade or more Musk has made grandiose promises that he never ever was able to keep. He in a way he's got a lot of that Donald Trump in him. I think Donald Trump the other day said he was going to get rid of income taxes or something if he became president. Y'all know that ain't gonna happen. But then the politicians, they all lie. I remember the many lies that were told by Obama and Biden and everybody else. And that's what happens, right? This is what they do. So with Musk even laying out a $30 trillion number and saying it's going to be because of robots and autonomous vehicles, I thought that was incredibly disingenuous. And I think about the typical investor in Musk stock. And I know that some of these investors are really enthusiastic young people who've kind of fallen in love with him as this pop culture figure or this cult-like following or whatever. And I remember a black man that I met on an airplane where he had $1 million or 2 million, I think, invested. He was only 33 years old. And we were talking. I said, man, I'm really proud of you. I think that's really awesome that you've done this. And I said, so where did you invest your money? And he had 100% of his money in Tesla. And I was just like, okay. And he wanted to do that because because Tesla stock had just been going up. And I mean, his wealth went from like, $250,000 to literally $2.5 million, something like that. And I tried to politely tell him I don't think that's a good idea. And I'll also say this, one big risk factor that Tesla has is what they call key man risk. If Elon Musk messes up, if something bad happens to him, if he dies of a heart attack, if he slips and falls in the shower, if he goes down on his airplane or something, or if they lock him up for whatever reason, because they can lock up anybody, they're now locking up, former president or trying to anyway. Then Tesla stock plummets. It drops 40, 50%. So generally speaking, I would say to you, when you invest, make sure you diversify. Don't get too excited about any one particular company. If you're excited about it, invest in it, enjoy yourself, but don't overcommit like that and don't get caught up in other people's frenzies, because I don't think that's a good way to invest. So overall, I guess time will tell if I'm right or wrong, but I think that in a year or two, we're going to really see I think some negative outcomes when it comes to Elon Musk. And that's just a thought that I wanted to share today. But one other thing that Musk did that was really interesting in terms of his ability to get the shareholders to give him his money, I forgot about this too, is that Elon did something that I've actually referred to that I think the Black community should consider in politics and everything else, which is he issued a credible threat. And the credible threat is when you basically have shown the ability and the willingness to walk away from the negotiating table in the event that you don't get what you want. And a lot of times we're afraid to issue a credible threat, but Musk basically said, look, if you don't give me my money, I'm out of here, or I'm going to focus on something else. And credible threats are actually a political science theory that you may want to keep in mind when it comes to negotiating, whether you're negotiating for a car, you're negotiating for your job, you're negotiating for your relationship, or anything else. And so let me see, I actually looked up the legal or the formal definition of a credible threat. You have to have the capability. It says the threatening party must have the means or resources to carry out the threat. This includes military power, economic sanctions, or other forms of leverage. 2, intent. So that means if you don't have the ability to even do what you say you're going to do, like you say, I'm going to leave this relationship, but you ain't even got a car or something. I don't know. I'm just being silly. Then that minimizes the credibility of your threat. Intent. The threatening party must have a clear intention or willingness to follow through with the threat if the opposing party does not comply. So that means that if you make a threat, you better be willing to follow through. If you pull out the gun, you better be ready to squeeze the trigger. If you're in a relationship you're not happy in and you say, I'm going to leave if X, Y, Z doesn't happen, you have to have full intent to do that and maybe show evidence that you're willing to do that. If you are negotiating pay on your job and you say, if you don't give me my money, I'm going to leave, well, you better be ready to leave. You got to have everything in place because that's what makes your threat credible. If Black people want more from the Democratic Party and they say, if you don't do what I want, we're going to not vote for you. Well, you have to show you're serious. And I think that because if you don't, then again, you don't get taken seriously. They say, yeah. You're just talking. You ain't going nowhere. What else? Communication. That's another important part. The threat must be clearly communicated to the target. A lot of times people have it in their mind. They'll have an ultimatum where they'll expect somebody to do something or they're going to adjust. And instead of giving them a chance, instead of warning them, like shooting a warning shot over the bow or doing something to really let them know, like, hey, I'm really going to go through with this, they'll just do it. And then the person's like, whoa, why did you do that to me? And you're like, well, because I told you to do this and you didn't do it. But when they say in negotiation, if your goal is to actually get them to comply, you have to give them a warning so that they know for sure. Now, you do understand that if you don't do X, Y, Z, you do know this is about to happen. And then when they make it clear that they're okay with it, then then you can follow through or whatever. What else? And they also said ambiguous or unclear threats are less likely to be credible because the target may not fully understand the consequences of non-compliance. So you can't hint of what you're going to do. You have to be clear and you have to say it. Fourth is rationality. The threatening party must be perceived as rational and acting in its own interest. If the threatening party is seen as irrational or unpredictable, the target may not believe the threat will be executed in a way that aligns with the threatening party's stated intentions. So I guess if somebody doesn't think that you are a rational person, maybe they think you're too emotional or something, they don't know what you're gonna do, or they say, oh, he ain't gonna do nothing. Or she's just talking. She ain't really gonna squeeze the trigger. She's just holding the gun up because she's just mad right now. Then maybe people won't take it seriously. All right. So what I can do? Okay. So Antoinette says, can you put these actions in the text? I can't put all of it in the text. It's kind of a long definition, but I don't really know how to put it in a text because the texts have to be short, like a couple sentences. So I apologize for that. But generally speaking, this is a negotiating strategy. This is long held in political science and in theory to basically say that if you don't let people know that there are consequences, then they're not typically going to respond to whatever you ask them to do. People don't tend to do things just because it's the right thing to do. A lot of times people will respond to what you incentivize them to do, especially when you're talking about kids. One thing my mother always says, and I give my mother credit for being pretty good at raising kids. At least she did really well with me and my sister and my brother. And again, we grew up in an environment where all of our friends ended up in really tough spots. Most of our friends growing up that we used to play with ended up in jail on drugs, unemployed, or just not really assets to their family. So for whatever reason, the discipline and structure in our household really worked. Yesterday was Father's Day, so shout out to all the fathers out there because my father, being a military police commander, played a very big part in the structure of that household. There was no chaos in that space because of that. And my mother also was just a really passionate person who was heavily involved with us. And also my parents were deeply committed to each other, meaning that, it was kind of like to be honest with you, it wasn't a modern relationship. My father did drive the car, but he had a true respect and honor for my mother, so he always made it clear that was the woman he loved and that's it. And to this day, he's still the same way, but he was always kind of the leader because if you know anything about police commanders and stuff like that, they kind of tell people what to do. I was driving him, somewhere yesterday, and he was like, "Make a left right here. Slow down at the stoplight." And I'm like, "Dude, I've driven this road like 85 times. Like, what are you like? I know my like 85,000 times. Like, I know my way. I know how to get to the grocery store." But he just has that in him, right? And that kind of required them to kind of understand what their role was, and for whatever reason, it worked for them. And the result was a really well structured home and a stable family, which it makes me sad that we can't give that gift to more of our children because I believe we can do that if we're really committed to it, we can do it. If you're committed to putting your ego to the side and doing what's best for the group and for the collective, then I think you can create that structure. So like when I get into a disagreement with my wife, I have a choice. I could be stubborn and go ballistic and just demand that you do what I say, or I could compromise. And I just don't know why that's so hard for some of us. I don't get it. But again, I'm not judging anybody's situation. I just don't know why these simple ideas are not more popular. But that's what my parents would do. They would just compromise with each other. And my mother would want something, and my father would say, "Well, that's what your mama wants to do," and that was it. So anyway, long story short, that structure of their line of thinking really played a big part in sort of protecting. And one thing my mother would say when you talk about controlling and managing kids, because kids are a true huge investment, much more so than any financial investment you'll ever make, consequences are really big for her. Like, so if you tell her that your 21-year-old son ain't doing what he's supposed to do, first question she's going to ask is, well, what are the consequences? Because if there's no consequences, she says, well, why would he ever do what you tell him to do if there's no consequences? And I think that simple idea can go a very long way as it pertains to really accomplishing almost anything. Because I know a lot of you have kids that could be better, could do better. And I encourage you to sort of structure and think like, what are the consequences of not doing what needs to be done? And the cool thing though is that if you can get everybody kind of on the same page, where everybody understands their job and their role on the team, you can do some amazing things together. There was and I'll say this, and then we're going to be done for today. But there's that one segment of India, like this one region of India, where the people from this region literally own, I think, 40% of all the hotels in the United States, and they do this through family businesses. They do. We talked about this, and we did a whole training on this group about a month and a half ago. I don't remember the name of the group actually, but I remember going through and we talked about that. By the way, if you go to drboycedaily.com, you can get all of the trainings that we've done, and feel free to take a look at that. So, but yeah, and if you looked at how they did it, it wasn't by accident. They did it because they have a process. They have a system of accountability. So they loan each other money. They'll loan each other $100,000 to buy their next hotel, but there's also a system to make sure that money gets paid back, right? And so it's not sort of this wide open chaos that we have in the United States, and also in many of our families. It wasn't like people just sort of run around doing whatever they want. Everybody had some sort of a role and an expectation, but by being committed to the collective, you have a tremendous amount of wealth. So when you have division, you tend to have poverty. When you have chaos, you have poverty. When you have war, you tend to have a lot of poverty and economic destruction. When you have unity, collaboration, compromise, working together, people putting their egos to the side, and you have peace, then that's when you can create prosperity. It's just like growing wealth is like growing a flower. You can't grow a flower in the middle of a war zone. It's just not going to work. You have to have peaceful, healthy soil for that flower to grow. So create that healthy soil, and I guarantee that your wealth will grow in the same way. All right, so I'm going to let you guys go. I want to let everybody know that on Thursday, we're going to do an event called How to Invest in the Stock Market. And I'm doing this for those of you that haven't started yet. I will take you step by step through the process of buying stock. If you'd like to get an invitation, we'll have a discount. There is a fee attached to the training. The materials are yours for life. You will get a discount by being in this group. So if you'd like to receive that discount, make sure you're on the text list. To get on the text list, text the word morning, MORNING, to 87948. Text morning to 87948, and I will send that to you. Or you can also go to drboyceelevate.com to join if you live out of the country. And we're going to do this Thursday morning. And also, don't forget the All Black National Convention is coming up in a few months. It's October 25th through the 27th. And I would invite you all on the trip to Egypt that we're doing in August, but that's sold out. So, but because you guys wanted it, or you were so excited about it, we're going to do more trips like that. So I'll let you guys know when we do the next one. And that's it. So I hope you guys have a great day. And if you want to learn more about the convention, it's allblacknationalconvention.com. It's allblacknationalconvention.com. It's in Lombard, Illinois, right outside Chicago, October 25th through the 27th. We secured one of our speakers, Brother Nuri Muhammad from the Nation of Islam, who's an amazing guy. If you haven't heard him speak, he's really good. Also, Lamar Tyler is coming, who is the biggest Black millionaire maker I've ever seen in my life. He literally leads an organization of dozens of Black millionaires that are regular people just like you and me, and he just understands some things that I think everyone should understand. So Lamar will be there too, along with about probably 50, 60 other experts that we've invited. So have a good day, everybody. God bless you. And I will see you all tomorrow morning.